Hey, Karen.
Hey, Megan.
Happy day.
We're just eating our snacks over here.
Yep. We've got chocolate cake, coffee, and Chex Mix, you guys.
It's great.
It's what podcasts are made of.
It's what's fueling our podcast today.
Absolutely.
I love it. We have people that love us.
I know. It's so nice. People just bring us food all the time. This is the Witches, Magic, Murder, Mystery podcast.
In case you weren't aware.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And what else?
We're stuck on a Wisconsin accent today, so if it pops out, I'm sorry.
We keep going, oh, don't you know?
Don't you know?
Yeah.
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 It's like Brendan Dassey on Making a Murder. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Poor Brendan Dassey. Ugh.
Oh my God.
The worst story.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
So what do we have today?
Okay, well, I'm going to do H.H. Holmes. I feel like
Ugh.
I'm due for a gruesome murder.
Oh, man. H.H. Holmes is such an intense story,
Him
too.
and his murder castle.
Yes.
Okay, but I have decided to tell his story and then pop information about the castle at the end. Just in case it's too gruesome for some people, but they still love to hear us. And they're here for it.
Because they're nice and supportive. Last week's episode had zero murder and gore in it, so we'll just make up for it this week.
Yeah, we are going to make
And then my episode for next week is awful. Let's talk about yours this week.
Okay, sounds good.
H.H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes. He was Herman Webster Mudgett. He was born May 16th, 1861. He died May 7th, 1896.
His name was Herman Mudgett?
Mudgett. Webster Mudgett.
Wow.
So his alias was Dr. H.H. Holmes.
Yeah, I would do that too. Herman Mudgett. Call me anything else.
Please
Thanks.
don't call me Mr. Mudgett.
Holmes. Like
Holmes.
Sherlock.
Yes.
Bless his heart.
Yes. So I kind of feel like an entire generation of torture porn horror movies is based on what he did. Like if you think about Saw and Hostel and think about his situation room.
Saw does sound like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love scary movies. I like scaring myself.
Mm-hmm.
We do a murder podcast.
Right.
But
we scare ourselves to sleep.
Right. Like Saw, I can't handle those.
No, I can't watch
that brand
kind of
horror movie. I
cannot
can't do.
No.
And I haven't even watched Hostel. I refuse.
No.
I heard enough about it that I was like, I probably should never see that.
No, when I was probably too young to watch these movies, my brother Josh and I used to have movie nights and we would watch these movies. Or when my husband and I first started dating, my oldest brother Jason and I would just sit up and wait for him to get off third shift. And we would watch scary movies and we would just be like freaking out on the couch when he got home and he'd be like, what is wrong with you all?
Nope.
No, I can't do it anymore.
No. The Hills Have Eyes, that's another one that like I've never seen. But I did watch a few weeks ago, The Hills Have Eyes too. Did I tell you this?
Yes.
I was angry when it was over.
I can't watch those. I actually, after you told me that, I messaged my friend that I used to play the Russian roulette on Netflix with. And I was like, hey, remember that time we watched Hills Have Eyes? Because I accidentally clicked on that one. He was like, no, that's horrible.
So The Hills Have Eyes too was traumatic. I was like, I can't, it was terrible. So.
Oh, and like the human centipede. What?
All this to say, I like horror movies, but there's a brand I can't handle, and just
Mr. Mudgett is it.
Mr. Mudgett. Let's call him that from now on.
Okay, so Mudgett was born in New Hampshire.
Okay.
He was the son of Levi Horton Mudgett and is that Theodette? Would you say Theodette?
Yeah.
Price. The family was descended from the first settlers in the area. He grew up with a really strict father, and he was also bullied as a child. He was born into a wealthy family, and he showed signs of high intelligence from an early age. He claimed that as a child, he had been forced by other students to view and touch a human skeleton after they found out about his fear of the doctor.
Where'd they find a human skeleton?
I really don't know.
Okay. just
a
around.
lot of this, well, he finds some later, but... So these bullies had initially brought him there to scare him, but he was super fascinated in it. And he was always interested in medicine. He used to trap animals and performed surgery on them.
Oh.
Yes. Some of the accounts of his life suggest that he killed his childhood playmate.
Really?
You.
Can you imagine being the bullies who are like, we're going to scare you with this skeleton, and it
like
turns out he's
poking
super
at
into
it, and he's like, oh, guys,
and then you're like, oh my God.
He's
then
like,
you're
guys,
terrified.
I love this. I love this for me right now.
Thank you so much.
Ooh. Okay, so it says he was a brilliant but erratic student. Maybe this was due to his extracurricular activities, like creeping on all the animals and stuff.
God.
So before he was 21, he married Clara Lovering of New Hampshire, the daughter of a well-to-do family, and she helped to get him educated. So she pretty much paid for his college tuition. Mm-hmm. He studied in Vermont at the medical school and the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. Here he began his lifelong preoccupation with cadavers. So on the...
Preoccupation.
Yeah.
I just can't focus on anything else.
Yes. So while in school, a body disappeared while being taken to the college dissecting room. He then collected insurance on said body. He established a pattern for himself who was nearly prevented from graduating when a widowed hairdresser accused him of making false promises to marry her.
While he was still married to, what's her name, Leverage or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
So not long after he left school in 1884, he graduated, moved to Chicago to practice pharmacy. He began to engage in several shady businesses, real estate, and promotional deals under H.H. Holmes. So that's when it all began, the H.H. Holmes life.
Okay.
So his wife and child returned to New Hampshire. They didn't see him again until 10 years later when he reappeared as a fugitive. So shortly after abandoning his wife, he arranged for her in a roundabout manner to hear that his memory had been impaired in a train wreck. This was...
Like, I didn't leave you, I just had amnesia? That's what you're saying? Okay.
I mean, it was absurd to think that he could desert his family. He had to make, like, all these ideas.
This guy seems like a real winner.
Yes.
Okay.
So while still married to her... On January 28, 1887, he married Amerta Belknap.
These names.
In Minnesota.
Minnesota.
They had a daughter named Lucy. The family of three resided in an upscale Chicago suburb. And although he spent most of his time in the city tending to business, he filed for a petition for divorce from his first wife after marrying his second. But it never...
I guess I should get rid of the first one.
Yeah, but that never became final.
Oh, okay.
He was also the lover of Julia Smythe, the wife of Ned Connor, who became one of his trusted associates. Associates. She later became one of his victims. He married his third wife, Georgiana Yoke, on January 9th, 1894.
So the wife of his buddy became one of his victims.
His lovers and victims.
Got it. His first wife lived.
Yeah.
It's just,
and they lived
she got away.
Away from him.
And he had a child.
Yeah. With that second wife.
Yeah.
He had a lot of love interests.
I don't know.
I mean, he was kind of handsome.
Was he? I was going to say, was he good looking? Like, I think I was getting the impression that he was.
Did you know that somebody traced his DNA back to Meghan Markle?
No.
Yep.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I jumped on that rabbit hole the other day. Okay, so while he was in Chicago, he came across Dr. E.S. Holton's drugstore. It was located at the corner of Wallace and 63rd Street in the neighborhood of Inglewood. I have no clue where any of these people are, or places are.
That's okay.
Holton was suffering from cancer while his wife minded the store. Through Holmes' charm, he got a job there and manipulated her into letting him purchase the store. The agreement between the two of them was that she could still live in the upstairs apartments after her husband died. But once he died, Holmes murdered Miss Holton and told people she was visiting relatives in California. As people started asking questions as to when she would be coming back, he told them that she loved California so much she decided to live there.
Wow.
Yes.
And I guess back then you could get away with that.
Yeah.
Because California was just like a whole other world, you know? I mean, it kind of still is.
Also, there's no social media, so nobody's going to like check
there's no way to... And it takes letters, like how long to get across that.
And maybe it didn't get to the right address. He didn't know where she moved to.
Weird.
Yeah.
And her husband died, so it's like she has to leave.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So in 1893, Chicago was given the honor of hosting the World's Fair, a cultural and social event to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus's discovery of America. The event was scheduled from May to October and attracted millions of people from around the world. When Holmes heard about this fair coming to Chicago, he was like, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this.
Yeah, this is, I think, is what I've heard of him from.
So he knew there would be several visitors searching for lodging near the fair, and he thought there would be lots of women who he could seduce into staying at his hotel. So after being lured into the hotel, many of these out-of-town visitors would never be seen again.
This makes me think of the American Horror Story.
Oh my gosh!
Hotel
I watched
season.
That
I couldn't watch. Again, it's that brand of horror.
Yeah,
I couldn't watch the hotel season. It
No.
messed me up.
Yes,
I think I got like 2 episodes
just
in.
Like, oh,
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
happening?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So, in thinking, you know what, I need a hotel to do all this in.
Oh, so he didn't have a hotel yet.
Not yet. This was all a thought. So then he
just manifested it.
Yes, he really did. Because he purchased a lot across from the drugstore where he built a 3-story, block-long castle, as it was dubbed in the neighborhood. It was opened as a hotel for the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893, and the structure was also used for commercial space. Okay. So the first floor of the castle had several stores. The 2 upper levels contained his office and over 100 rooms that were used as living quarters. The ground floor of the castle contained, aside from his own relocated drugstore, various shops like a jeweler and other things like that.
So this was like, what was this? The late 1800s?
Yes.
And over, it's a
That's
big.
a lot. It's huge. I'll show you a picture.
Okay.
While the upper 2 floors contained his personal office, it was also a maze of over 100 windowless rooms with doorways that would open to brick walls, oddly angled hallways, stairways to nowhere, doors that could only be opened from the outside, a host of other strange and labyrinth constructions. Weird. Yes. He also repeatedly changed builders during this construction process because he didn't want people getting skeptical and asking questions, and he didn't want the police getting involved either, based on all these questions by these people. During the building process, he was still maintaining a home life with his wife and Wilmette. He would change owners of the castle. Like, at one point, his mother-in-law was listed as owner, and it was constantly changing because he didn't want people
to realize it was him.
Yeah, attaching it to him. But his wife never lived in the castle, and when they spoke of his jealous wife who lived, they meant Julia Connor, his love interest.
Got it.
Yeah.
The one they ended up killing?
Yes.
Ned Connor's wife?
Yes. Okay. So she, aside from his childhood playmate, which people think that he may have murdered, she is one of the first women he murdered.
Okay.
Yes. So she would sometimes slip downstairs when she heard a female voice in the drugstore, and Holmes removed the 3rd step on the stairs, installed an electric buzzer that would warn him of her approach. Yes. So after doing that, he developed a singular system of alarms, which later attempted to flight from the castle for many of his prisoners. So he would use it, or attempted to use, as like, oh gosh, like they're coming for me.
Yeah. So like booby traps.
I'm in the middle of a murder. I need to run.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. So
he does seem really smart in a way that's like, ugh. Like,
yeah. Yeah. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Connor, her husband, and their 8-year-old child came to Chicago in 1890. The couple found employment at the drugstore, which is where Holmes started messing around with her.
Yeah.
He was like, she's a good-looking lady. So during this period, Holmes went to Texas, where he allegedly stole a horse and met a young woman named Minnie Williams, who later played a really important part of his career.
Minnie. I like the name Minnie.
He also met Benjamin Pitzel. It was known that they lived together for a time in 1892. Holmes also bailed Pitzel out of a jail where he was held on a bad check charge. So some of their belongings were intermingled. So they kind of just were like, hey, we do the same things, kind of. Let's get together. Yes.
Great.
Okay, back to Minnie. So after a few months, Minnie arrived at the castle. She invited her younger sister Anna to join her. Anna left Texas at the end of June 1893. On July 4th, she wrote happily to her aunt that sister, brother Harry, and me would leave the next day for Europe, where Anna might remain to study art. She added, Brother Harry says you need never trouble any more about me, financially or otherwise. He and sister will see to me.
Is Harry Holmes? Or
their brother.
Oh, okay.
So Minnie is saying that she's writing to her aunt saying, you probably won't hear from us for a while because, everything's going to be taken care of. Yes. Got it. Yeah. So crazy. So Holmes later maintained that Minnie killed her younger sister, Anna. The two girls had quarreled over Holmes's affection a week after Anna arrived. And he claimed that Minnie had beaten Anna to death with a stool. He also added that they put the body in a trunk, had weighted it down with lead, had it dumped into Lake Michigan 3 miles offshore. This seems unlikely. It was never proved or disproved. God.
The whole thing of she killed her. They just, they just wanted me. They couldn't help themselves. Look at me.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden...
Herman Mudgett.
Yeah, all of a sudden the siblings disappear.
Ugh.
All of them. Even Minnie.
Anna and Minnie. Okay, all of them.
Yes. Holmes got his hands on their money. They had family money. They had property. He prepared to build a house on it on behalf of his partner, who was Ben Pitzel.
Oh, yeah. Was it still in Texas?
Yes.
Okay.
So, to get a clear field in Chicago and a scapegoat in Fort Worth, he lured his castle caretaker, Pat Quinlan, to Texas and then disappeared, leaving Quinlan to face his creditors. So, he owed a bunch of people money, and he was like, I don't know, my guy's here.
Yeah.
He'll handle everything.
Disappears?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. He traveled the U.S., committing insurance scams with his accomplice, Ben Pitzel. Once the World's Fair had ended, Chicago's economy wasn't so great, so he abandoned the castle and focused on insurance scams, committing random murders along the way. During this time, he stole more horses from Texas, shipped them to St. Louis, and sold them, making tons of money. He was arrested for this situation and sent to jail. So he wasn't arrested for the murder.
I was going to say, so he got caught and arrested for the horse thing, but not the murder stuff.
Yes. So while he was in jail, he concocted a new insurance scam with his cellmate, Marion Hedgepeth. He said he would take out an insurance policy to fake his own death, provided Hedgepeth with the money in exchange for a lawyer who could help him if any problems arose.
Okay.
Once Holmes was released from jail on bail, he attempted his plan. However, the insurance company was suspicious and didn't pay him out. Holmes then decided to attempt a similar plan in Philadelphia. This time, he would have Pitzel fake his own death. However, during this, Holmes actually killed Pitzel and collected money for himself.
Yeah. He doesn't have any friends that he hasn't killed yet, right? I mean, he's just sort of, everybody's a liability, I guess.
Yeah. Right. And the sad thing is Pitzel had agreed to fake his own death so his wife could collect money on the policy. And she was supposed to split that money with Holmes. But once in Philadelphia, Holmes was just like, nope, screw it.
They didn't split any money.
No. So they also, while Pitzel was alive and they were trying to attempt this scheme, he decided that he was going to set himself up as an inventor under the name B. Perry and to be killed and disfigured in a lab explosion.
B. Perry. Okay.
Holmes was to find an appropriate cadaver to play his role. On September 4th, 1894, a caller, thinking it strange that the door of the little office of Callow Hill Street in Philadelphia should be locked, enlisted aid of police, and they forced the door open, found a body of a man who had been the victim of an explosion. Burns disfigured the face and left arm. There was a pipe nearby, lots of matches, broken bottle, which it contained some flammable fluid. I don't know.
Whatever caused the explosion, I guess.
The coroner's physician thought the man had been dead for 3 days. Through decomposition and fire, it made a positive identification difficult. The dead man apparently was B. Perry, the tenant of the office.
Who doesn't really exist. And that's really Pitzel?
In his pockets were letters, presumably from his wife. Through the bottom portions included the signatures. It had been torn away. They indicated that Perry had come to Philadelphia recently from St. Louis, and that his wife was still there, but expected to join him shortly. So that's what
there's a whole backstory?
Yes.
This is really like well thought out.
Yes.
I don't want to compliment Mr. Mudgett, but
yeah, his body laid unclaimed in the morgue for 10 days and was buried in a potter's field. Wow. So that Holmes killed Pitzel. Some people argued that Pitzel was an alcoholic, chronic depressive, that he maybe committed suicide, but forensic evidence presented at Holmes' later trial that chloroform was administered and aided
so he
in
killed
Pitzel's
him for
death.
sure.
Yeah.
I guess we're not surprised.
No. He went to his wife, Pitzel's wife, and convinced her to allow the 3 of her 5 children, Alice, Nellie, and Howard, to stay in his custody.
Oh. How?
Yeah, I don't know how you would convince somebody of that. The eldest daughter and baby remained with Miss Pitzel. He traveled with the children through the northern United States and into Canada. He escorted Miss Pitzel along a parallel route, all while using various aliases and lying to her concerning her husband's death, claiming that he was in hiding in South America.
Oh, so maybe that's how, because she didn't realize her husband was dead.
Yeah.
I wonder why he wanted the kids.
Well,
just to...
Insurance.
Oh. Or to look better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Just to look less threatening or something.
Yeah. All while he was lying to her about the true whereabouts of her other children. They were often only separated by a few blocks.
Oh, wow.
A Philadelphia detective had tracked Holmes, finding decomposed bodies of 2 of Pitzel's girls in Toronto. He followed Holmes to Indianapolis. There, Holmes had rented a cottage. He was reported to have visited a local pharmacy to purchase drugs, which he used to kill Pitzel, and to repair the shop to a repair shop to sharpen the knives he used to chop up the body before he burned it.
Kill, like, the son, I guess? Okay, so he found the 2 decomposed bodies of the daughters.
Yep.
Nellie and Alice. Okay.
Yeah, and then went to the drugstore.
Why?
To get stuff.
Why did he ask for the children if he just wanted to kill them?
Yep. So in 1894, the police were tipped off by his former cellmate, Hedgepeth, when Holmes had neglected to pay him as he promised. Holmes's escapade ended when he was finally arrested in Boston on November 17th, 1894, after being tracked from where he was in Philadelphia by the Pinkertons. Do you know who the Pinkertons are?
No.
They are the detectives that transported Lincoln when all those things were going on. They discovered all this information about how people were planning on killing him in the South, and they helped get him through those trains and stuff.
So is Pinkertons their last name, or is it just
that
the
is
name
just
of
the detective agency? Isn't that so cool though?
It's super, super cool.
So after that, he was held on an outstanding warrant for horse theft in Texas because they were suspicious about everything else, but they didn't have anything to hold them on.
The evidence is the horse theft. I get it, but ugh.
Before Hedgepeth was transferred to a penitentiary, he was going to serve 25 years for his term. The investigators were hot on the trail of Holmes because Hedgepeth, before they transferred him, they were, discussing everything with him, give us all the information. He confessed to insurance fraud, denied the murder, expressed willingness to go to Philadelphia, but refused to go to Texas, where he was only wanted for the horse theft. He said that Pitzel was in South America and that the 3 missing children were in South America, Detroit, and England. He also offered his guard $500 if he would allow him to hypnotize him en route. The guard was like, no.
What?
Nah, buddy.
No.
Yeah.
Weirdo.
Miss Pitzel was not prosecuted. She was trying to attempt insurance fraud, but she had no clue that all this stuff was going on.
Yeah, she didn't know actual murder was, and then her kids were murdered.
Yes.
But she still has 2 of her kids, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So then, after he was arrested and all this stuff happened, search began for various other persons who had been involved with Holmes. Apparently, he continued to talk, and detectives spent months untangling his lies, investigating certain mysterious activities of which he had intrigued them while they pursued him all over the country. So he just, was trying to create, all these webs of lies about the whole situation. It just got nasty.
I can just imagine he just keeps another explanation and then another explanation and
yes.
Okay.
Yep. So his castle ended up catching on fire.
Oh.
Yes. So
that's back in Chicago?
Uh-huh. Okay. Once that fire, it kind of opened up the building for the police to actually see inside of.
Oh, yeah.
And so then they started seeing like all these trap rooms and finding all these bodies and like all this stuff. And they were like, oh, shoot.
I guess I thought when he left to go to Texas or whatever, he might have cleaned out but he didn't clean it out. He just left it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So they only verified 27. Although police were
27 bodies.
Although police were sure that there were several others, and there were lots of like dismembered and decomposed that they couldn't tell really how many bodies were there.
I wonder who set the fire, or if it was it set? Or...
Start the fire. Okay. We can't stop. So on October 28th, 1895, the first day of his trial for Pitzel's murder, he dismissed his attorneys and was like, I got this, guys.
I love it when they do that. Myself. It's amazing every time.
And everybody was like, it's really weird how familiar he is with law. Like, he knows his stuff.
But he is really smart. I mean,
yes.
I don't like it, but he is really smart.
Yes. And so the newspapers observed that while they would be on recess, he sat in the dock and read Stephen's Digest of Laws of Evidence. And so he's just sitting there reading about it.
Wow.
And he's like, I can get myself out of this.
I mean, I kind of get why he thinks he can, though, because look how long he's gotten away with, all the stuff he's gotten away with.
So finally, he was put on trial for Pitzel's murder and confessed. He followed his conviction to 27 murders in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Toronto, and 6 attempted murders.
So he confessed. That was his brilliant legal strategy.
Yep. And he was paid $7,500 by the Hearst papers in exchange for his confession. Somebody gave him money to confess to this.
How is that allowed?
I don't know.
You think it can't be now?
Yeah.
There's no way it's allowed now, right?
No
okay.
Way.
But I mean,
he can't. Like, he could have used that as bond.
Well, it's also coercion. Like, how can you trust the confession? It seems like it would throw everything off.
Yes. So he was hanged May 7th, 1896 in Philadelphia. It was reported that when the executioner had finished all the preliminaries of the hanging, he asked, "Ready, Dr. Holmes?" To which Holmes said, "Yes, don't bungle." The executioner did bungle, however, because Holmes' neck didn't snap immediately. Ooh. He instead died slowly and painfully of strangulation over the course of 15 to 20 minutes.
Good.
He requested that he be buried in concrete so that no one could ever dig him up and dissect his body, as though he dissected so many others. And the request was granted. Weird. I would have been like, nah, bud. Yeah. You don't get that.
I mean, I would have, I just wouldn't have given him the satisfaction of granting that. No. I would have been like, maybe we will.
Maybe we will.
Maybe we're going to donate you to the medical college.
Oh, to the college you graduated from.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. So the castle was eventually remodeled as an attraction and named the Holmes Horror Castle, but it burned to the ground shortly before its opening. That shit was haunted.
I was going to say, like, listen, even as much as I love true crime, that's the Holmes Murder Castle. Yes. Don't do that.
No, don't do that.
People actually died there. Don't make it a tourist attraction.
No. So I want to touch for a second on the castle.
Okay, so this is the trigger warning part?
Yeah, it gets gross.
If you can't handle it, just...
back away.
We love you anyway. Come back next week.
We'll see you tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Next week. Okay, so the castle contained nearly 100 rooms, staircases that led nowhere, like I mentioned, blind passageways, hinged walls, false partitions, rooms with no doors, a stairway that led to windowless cubicle between floors, chutes that dropped straight down to the cellar. Behind his apartments were various rooms labeled in contemporary newspaper sketches as 5-door room, secret room, mysterious closed room. Behind this last was a dummy elevator for lowering bodies to the basement. The black closet. These are all labels that he's got on these rooms. Room of the 3 corpses. Sealed room all in brick. Blind room. Another secret chamber. The hanging secret chamber. And so on. Nearly 40 rooms in all were listed like this.
Can you imagine if you got into that place as, like, back when he lived there and he was doing his stuff, and you realize what's going on and you're trying to run away, you're trying to get out, and you're going down,
it's
like,
a labyrinth of room.
Like,
and
just
seeing these labels.
And...
another label in the rear of the house was asphyxiation chamber, no light, with gas. So in that room with the gas connections, there were large purchased gas fixtures. It was apparent that he used to practice locking his victims in this sealed asbestos-lined room and turned on the gas.
No.
Yep. Right behind that room was another chute to which bodies could be dropped down to the basement.
Oh.
Yeah. Some of the second-story rooms were lined with iron plates. Some had false doors, airless chambers.
We don't know why. He just had this morbid fascination with. There's no like.
No.
He wasn't getting revenge on anybody.
Yep.
It's just like.
Yeah.
Just because he could, basically.
It says that the cellar was perhaps the most remarkable section of the building. It was fitted with operating tables, a crematory, pits containing quicklime and acids, surgical instruments, and various pieces resembling medieval torture racks.
I wonder how many people he killed.
There's got to be hundreds.
I mean, especially with the World's Fair and how many people probably came through that hotel.
Yep.
And he got away with it for so long.
Yeah. Well, and it says he sometimes destroyed the bodies of his victims completely.
Yeah, with the lime and all that stuff.
Yes.
And the crematorium.
Yes. And you know what he would sometimes do?
No.
A lot of these victims were the hotel guests, wives of, people he had met. He would get insurance policies on all these people. He would like dismember their bodies, take the lime to get like their flesh and organs and all this stuff off. And then he would take their skeletons and sell them, or he would sell the whole cadaver.
Wow.
Yeah. Some people were locked in soundproof bedrooms fitted with gas lines that permitted him to asphyxiate them at any time. Some were locked in a huge bank vault near his office. He could sit and listen to them scream, and then he would suffocate them since it was soundproof. All of the bodies went by secret chute to the basement.
I just don't know what do you even say?
Yeah, like he would craft them into skeletal models.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He cremated some of the bodies, placed them in lime pits for destruction. He had 2 giant furnaces, pits of acid, bottles of various poisons. Ugh.
God.
And all of this stuff he had gained in a medical school. So he knew how to do all this stuff. Like he picked one of the most remote rooms in the castle to perform hundreds of illegal abortions. Some of his patients died, and he would take their corpses to be processed and sold to medical schools.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's
Mr. Mudgett.
Mr. Mudgett.
He sounds so innocent as Mudgett.
Mudgett does make him sound very like humble and
but then
meek.
He's Holmes. Mr. Holmes.
Well, that's why I was like, I feel like he had some sort of like low self-esteem issues, and so
yeah,
my whole thing is trying to figure out why people are the way they are. But I'm like,
yes,
he changed his name to Holmes to be more impressive, and whatever.
But look, he wasn't hideous. He just looks like a normal businessman.
He does look like a normal businessman.
He doesn't look creepy.
On the Instagram.
He doesn't look anything.
No,
but
I mean he doesn't.
On his castle,
I kind of want him to be. I want there to be a reason.
And his castle's not terrifying either. It just looks
like a normal building,
a downtown building. You can't tell that there's
like. I'm real curious if his parents were awful, or you know what I mean. Like, where did this evil come from? Like, why?
His dad was like a disciplinarian, but it doesn't say that like they abused him or
where did all this rage come from?
Yeah,
or is it even rage? Was it just a sick curiosity? Like, why did he do this?
Yeah. It all started when he poked the skeleton.
It's those bullies.
It's the bullies that forced him into it.
Good Lord. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see pictures of Mr. Mudgett and his murder castle, we'll put that on the Instagram, which you can find at
Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery.
Yes.
Yes.
And yeah, you guys, I think it's been a couple episodes since we mentioned, if you have any stories that you like or that you think have never been covered or anything like that, email them to us at witchesmagicmurdermystery@gmail.com.
Yes, we would love to hear them. We would love to cover them. We also have been tossing around. I know we mentioned this before, but we just got distracted with our doing a live session. But if you want us to cover something weird or turn it into like drunk history, we're all over it.
Yeah, we have big plans for that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much. And we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, bye.